This photo shows the neighborhood of Stalingrad in August 1942. A group of German soldiers stands over a trench and looks at dead Soviet machine gunners. On the ground next to the Maxim machine gun there is a pile of fired cartridges and an empty belt hanging down. On the fighting position is an empty wooden box of ammunition. That is, the soldiers stood to the last cartridge, to their last breath, and did not surrender. On many internet resources this amazing photo is accompanied by the memoirs of former Wehrmacht Private Eduard Koch. Let me quote them to you, because they are very interesting and, most importantly, instructive. But I warn you at once that the described events probably have no direct relation to the present photo. It is just a vivid illustration of the heroism of the Soviet people during the Second World War. There were thousands of such feats at the front. So, the words of German soldier Eduard Koch. I got to the Eastern Front with a replenishment, after a successful counteroffensive of our troops near Kharkov in the spring of 1942. Then began this endless march to the Volga. We almost never met the Russians, only separate skirmishes were, there were very few prisoners. The Russians were quickly retreating, almost running, but without panic, quite organized. We young soldiers rejoiced at this, because it seemed to us then that the enemy was finally broken and the end of the war was near. My friend and fellow countryman Heinz was worried that the war would end like that, and he had not even been in a serious battle. But our platoon old man Feldfebel did not share our enthusiasm. He was gloomy and constantly told us, "What are you idiots rejoicing about? Since the Russians could not be surrounded and destroyed in this devilish steppe, they will all go to Stalingrad and arrange there for all of us a new Verdun." But we among ourselves laughed at the old grouch. However, he was right. On the distant approaches to Stalingrad the hell began. I remember some village and a small height in front of it, on the right a waterlogged river, on the left an open field, which was riddled with mines. We tried to bypass it, but came under fire of camouflaged Russian tanks. So there was only one way out through this village, but there were Russians in the houses, and from the height Russian machine guns were firing at us, and we had losses. The height was pelted with mines, but as soon as the explosions subsided, the machine gun came to life and put us on the ground again. After an hour the Russians left the village and the fire stopped, but the damn machine gun wouldn't stop. Our mortars could not silence it. Finally, the machine gun went silent. We climbed up to the heights and what we saw there shocked us. There were 2 Russians lying in a half-filled trench, next to a broken machine gun. One, apparently, had been killed earlier and his comrade put him at the bottom of the trench, covering him with his overcoat, while he continued to shoot. The worst thing was that his legs were badly wounded, but the Russian tied the stumps with some pieces of cloth to stop the blood, and continued to shoot until he was killed by the shrapnel of a nearby mine. Everyone fell silent. Our old man Feldfebel smoked his pipe and asked us, "Well, now you realize that everything is just beginning? And if we manage to get away from here, consider ourselves very lucky." We buried those Russians there in the trench, installing their broken machine gun instead of a tombstone. Probably since then, many of us have been thinking hard about the future. These were the memories of a German soldier Eduard Koch about the feat of unknown Soviet soldiers in August 1942 on the outskirts of Stalingrad.